Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, aka for those of you who live in Japan, Mario Luigi RPG for the Game Boy Advance. So, last time, we did somehow manage able to continue exploring the forms of Wahoo University to battle some more enemy encounters, and on top of that, solve some more puzzles, and on top of that, we also did manage to collect some more items here and there, and of course, most notably though, we finally managed able to encounter Kakalata again, although except this time we finally get a chance to able to beat her up, and as a result, we can able to claim ourselves the beanstar, right? Well, it turns out though it's about the fact that the beanstar in general did somehow smash through the floor, and as a result, it did somehow fell into the actual basement. So because of that, yeah, we need to able to find that in the actual basement location of Wahoo University. So because of that, yeah, I do apologize for that particular tongue twisting in here, folks. So anywho, so speaking of where just that today for this video is that we should probably able to actually conclude every aspect in terms of the forms of Wahoo University, so as a result we can able to actually entering into the final stretch of this particular location, so just in case we can able to miraculously try to able to encounter the beanstar itself. So because of that, and hopefully though without any some sort of interruptions by the forms of, well, not only Kakalata, but on top of that with the forms of Farfel too. So because of that, yeah, we should able to actually try to go for this particular puzzle from now on, because as you can see that we have to once again try to utilize with the water amount with Mario and Luigi using a hammer or using high jump if you will to potentially try to spit out water. Although to be more specific than that, we need to use the hammer as the water projectile as opposed to high jump, because even then, that's essentially how this goes. So because of that, yeah, I'm afraid to tell you, if you do manage to able to try to solve this puzzle, I believe you only got about, well, let's just say for instance though, I get the feeling we need to start from the top first, and then the bottom. So because of that, yeah, let's go and try this again, because as soon as you're able to actually try to knock these little cutie robots into the actual wire, as you can tell, we only have 4 chances, because if you out of luck for able to actually mess up for about 4 times, then you have to restart this particular puzzle again. So because of that, hopefully though with the second try, I should be able to succeed. So because of that, and it's a good thing too is about the fact that we did somehow manage to able to solve this puzzle to potentially make our way to the final stretch of this place. So because of that, yeah, let's go ahead and quickly save our game. And something tells me though is about the fact that we might able to actually stumble across into the next boss fight. And would you look at that, how many coins I've somehow got so far? I've got about 2022 coins. So yeah, that's actually very convenient, especially because it's been like, you know, 3 years since we've been to 2022, so I was assuming to myself about the fact that we can able to possibly try to make it into 2025, the amount of coins per se, or to be expected though is about the fact that, well, obviously though after dealing with so many battles for the sake of the forms of the basement section, so oh, we somehow meet again with the forms of not only Popple, but in addition to the forms of Roki as well. And I believe something tells me they're up to something. To be more specifically, they try to go after that particular glorious, you know, Star Bean. So yeah, we have no choice but to able to fight them two again, ever since the forms of the actual different locations. So anywho, so with that being said folks, it's about the fact that, well, there are a couple of things I want to talk about today, and that's what appears to be for the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 7th of November today, in some cases in 2025 today, and no matter what though, we've only got about 1 week left until Dragon Ball Sparking Zero for not only for Nintendo Switch 1, but in addition to Nintendo Switch 2 version as well is going to be releasing. And on top of that, we've got about approximately 13 more days to go until Kirby Air Riders is releasing. And I believe, if I can recall correctly, we just got about a couple of days until when Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is also going to be releasing on Nintendo Switch 1 as well as Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So yeah, chances are though is about the fact that we're actually getting very close to the final stretch. In terms of the forms of some major game releases of the forms of 2025 before we move along to a brand new year, which is of course 2026. So but anyways, here we go with the next boss fight. As I said before, we're about to be face off against with Popple and Roki again. The only major difference is this time is not only it takes place in a different environment, and on top of that, they do have more HP slightly. So for instance though, Popple got about 150 HP, and then as for Roki, he does have 250 HP. So because of that, good thing we did somehow manage to take down Popple straight off the bat, because obviously though, why does he always have like lower HP compared to Roki? They does have more HP compared to Popple. Well, that's besides the point. So I'm pretty sure some of these attacks are relatively the same as the forms of how it does on the first encounter, so there's nothing different from there. Well, apart from the fact that we can now able to utilize our new bros attacks. So because of that, like for instance though, knockback bros, and on top of that, chopper bros or anything else like that. So, but still, it is pretty satisfying if you do manage to successfully try to pull this off. Although, there's also the other two bros attacks we can able to come across into later on, and relatively speaking, I was about the fact that as soon as we're able to actually get into the next location coming up, because, well, straight to the point that, like I said before, we're actually getting very close towards the end of, Wahoo University before we're able to move along to the next couple of locations that we can able to start able to explore into. So, but anyways, let's go and keep on doing this again. So just in case we can able to do some devastating attacks, and there goes Roki. So because of that, now in terms of those specific rewards you do get, if you do manage to defeat not only Popple, but in addition to Roki as well, I believe you got about 120 experience points if you defeat Popple, and if you do manage to defeat Roki, you get about 180 experience points. So, and as for coins though, you're able to actually get about 33 coins for each. So, chances are though is about the fact that now, there's one little aspect I completely forgot to mention about. If you did manage to able to try and take on Roki first, and if you do manage to finish him off, chances are though, for what I've realized, for the fact that I believe Popple did somehow get a chance to able to run away in battle. So because of that though, meaning that you get less chance to able to get yourself some tons of experience points. So that's one way to put it. So either way, oh, it looks like Roki realized that he's now Bowser. So because of that, I'm guessing his memory has been refreshed or restored. So, and it looks like the beanstar has been scattered into 4 pieces. So yeah, can we see what this is going? So either way, and it looks like we've once again got separated, or should I say, we somehow got into the actual beach location, I say.
Mamma mia.
And I've realized that Mario got trapped in the actual sand, so yeah, Luigi's pretty mad at the forms of those tiny crabs, but either way. So, I'm sure we'll try to get Mario out by simply trying to press the A button like so. And yeah, everything else checks out there, basically. Well, apart from the fact that we ended up in a beach location, like I said before, so as you can tell, for the fact that we actually come across into not one, but 2 different temples. So, yeah, we'll talk more about that once we're able to start to explore around in this particular beach area. So, although ultimately though is about the fact that we ended up in Oasis or something like that. I mean, mind you though, like I said before, but I'm also saying this again, it's been about a couple of hours since I actually have last played this game for sure, because not only did I somehow manage to get back on playing through Super Mario Galaxy 2 on my glorious Nintendo Switch, but also I'm still playing through Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment right now. And straight to the point though, I'm actually on the final stretch already in terms of Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the Nintendo Switch version, because relatively speaking I finally managed to collect every single green stars on that version of the game. And no matter what though, is about the fact that once I'm done with the forms of Super Mario Galaxy 2 for the Switch version specifically, now we can able to to get a chance to potentially, speaking of, try to do the actual Let's Play of specifically duology of games, just to celebrate for one of those movies to be coming out. Which then again, we're probably not going to get into more further details on this just yet, so, but I digress. So, and it's also straight to the point though, is about the fact that currently, as for right now, as far as the progression, as far as I'm concerned, you know, whenever I was trying to play through Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, I'm actually still on to Chapter 2 right now, so relatively speaking, I'm probably not going to get into more further details onto that particular subject, because, well, generally speaking, it's the most recent game in terms of the spin-off Zelda games, basically, so, but either way, and also I just want to classify for something about this too, is that not only do we able to actually get ourselves one anniversary of one of those Nintendo GameCube games, but on top of that, one of the anniversaries for the sake of the films of one of those films came out. Like, for instance though, in 2005, I think is what it says anyway, basically though, there's a game, Mario Party 7, for the Nintendo GameCube, specifically first came out in North America at first, and relatively speaking of what I've noticed, it's been 20 years ago since Mario Party 7 did somehow first came out on the Nintendo GameCube back in 2005, and gee, what a ride we somehow went through in terms of the forms of trying to celebrate that particular game's 20th anniversary, and while looking back on it though, after 20 years since when it first came out, I still had a pretty fun time, despite there are some glowing issues, like for instance though, be prepared for very long games, which I think that's the only major issue with the forms of Mario Party 7 to me, because there are certain turns that can take forever to get through, which is especially noticeable for the sake of the forms of some board events, like space minigames, and on top of all that stuff though, don't even get me started with the forms of Bowser Spaces. Like for instance though, most of these minigames are basically just marathons basically. Well, apart from the forms of some of those single-player minigames from time to time, but it's just about the fact that trying to go from next turn to another just can take a very long time to get through, which even then, but aside from all that stuff though, and also some criticism with the forms of the actual small quantity of the forms of the 4-player minigames category, because despite the fact that back in the day, Mario Party 7 for the longest time, that Mario Party 7 was the biggest selections of the amount of minigames we have, like the largest amount of quantity, whilst every nowadays though, thanks to the forms of the existence of the Nintendo Switch 2, that Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 edition plus Jamboree TV actually has the largest amount of those minigames, all thanks to the forms of the Switch 1 version included, and on top of that, with 20 bonus minigames for specifically for Nintendo Switch 2, making a grand total of whopping 132 minigames, which is pretty insane if you ask me. So because of that, yeah, I've got nothing else to say, but I digress. So, as you can see, we somehow learned the hand power, well, to be more specifically, Luigi's Thunder hand power. And to put it simply though, much like the forms of how it does with a hammer though, you can just try to able to toggle for those by simply pressing the R button to potentially try to able to switch those commands up. So yeah, Luigi can now use his Thunder. So either way, so what you can do with it though, is by simply trying to able to activate something, like for instance though, we somehow activated the blue orb as you saw, to potentially trying to open out the gate, so just in case we can able to get out of the forms of that particular Thunder Temple. So but here's the thing though, we do need something for Mario, but luckily though it's not too far from there though, so yeah, chances are though, I don't think there's any battle encounters in this particular location. Well, there's actually the optional enemy encounter you can able to actually fight against with, although nothing more, just filler. So because of that though, we'll get into more details about that once we're able to actually get into this subject. So, anywho. So, yeah, anyway, while I was looking back on playing through Mario Party 7, and for the longest time though, that, like I said before, that back then, it usually has, like, the largest amount of quantity of minigames, like, specifically, 88 minigames. So, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, I still had a fun time playing through Mario Party 7 while looking back, especially noticeable. It's a good thing we still managed to get the game after a couple of years ago actually, or should I say 18 years since I've last got Mario Party 7 physical version, because for the longest time, or even especially noticeable, that every nowadays, the pricing for Mario Party 7 these days is skyrocketing, which I guess no wonder why that newcomers out there was going to be so desperately able to see not only Mario Party 4, but in addition to Mario Party 5, Mario Party 6, and especially noticeable with Mario Party 7, will eventually going to be on its way for the sake of the forms of Nintendo Switch 2 online expansion pack, because, you know, after all, we've already got the first 3 Mario Party games on the forms of Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack, and all of them are Nintendo 64 entries, so... But either way, so we now ended up in the Fire Temple as Mario, and now we can able to actually try to enhance with the forms of the Fire brand, or should I say, the hand power for Fire, or anything else like that. So, usually for the sake of the forms of the Fire hand power, it might act out very similar to the forms of Thunder hand power as Luigi, but only for the fact that Mario can able to only utilize Fire. So, yeah, I guess that makes it pretty obvious for the circumstances when it comes to this particular terms. So, anyway, as for the film, for the likes of the film's that 10th anniversary, now I say the 10th anniversary because did you guys know? It's been 10 years ago since the Peanuts movie did somehow first came out, specifically in the 6th of November in 2015. Or, technically, for those of you who live in the UK, it does have a long title, which appears to be Snoopy and Charlie Brown, the Peanuts movie. So because of that, though, and while looking back on it, though, I still found it to be a very impressive film, especially it was being made by, you know, Blue Sky Studios, of course. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, I can't believe by saying this about the fact that that film did came out right after Rio 2 in terms of the films of the Blue Sky Studios of Films Library, and usually, unfortunately though, that film came out before Ice Age Collusion Course, or should I say Ice Age 5. What a massive disappointment that film was, but that'll be a topic for a later time, especially once we get to the films of the new year, 2026, so you guys can clearly tell what I'm talking about. So, but either way, so, anywho, the next thing I want to point out too is that for what I can tell, not only do we about to be getting ourselves a brand new release date for not only for Pokemon Legends EA DLC Mega Dimension, and on top of that there's also going to be the Switch 2 edition release date for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, and also out of nowhere that one of the games in particular is receiving the Nintendo Switch 2 edition out of nowhere, and in fact that just somehow recently came out just now actually. So first things first though is about the fact that when it comes to the actual release dates for both Sonic Racing Cross Worlds for the Nintendo Switch 2 version, and then as for the forms of Pokemon Legends EA Mega Dimension DLC, they are both going to be releasing until next month, specifically in December. So because of that, well, keep that in mind though, is that Sonic Racing Cross Worlds for Nintendo Switch 2 digitally is going to be up first, and then as we expected, the physical version can wait, enjoying at some point until some point in, you know, in 2026 for some time. So because of that, now, for instance though, I believe Sonic Racing Cross Worlds Nintendo Switch 2 edition is going to be releasing until the 4th of December in 2025. And I can't really tell about the forms of the physical version just yet, but maybe it might actually going to be releasing and joining forms of it either in January or February or March, depending on the forms of the actual time frame as far as is worth considering for. So, and as for the forms of Pokemon Legends EA Mega Dimension DLC, that particular DLC is going to be releasing in December 10th. So because of that, usually for about 6 days after Sonic Racing Cross Worlds Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Now, I'm very appreciative about the fact that they're just literally going to be branded as in Nintendo Switch 2 edition instead of the phone's that stupid game key card formation, because my goodness, that will turn out to be pretty rough if that seems to be the case. So with that being said, now as you can see on screen right there, we're actually going to be faced up against with this very unusual enemy right there, or should I say, one of those NPCs that we're about to be faced up against, and that's what it appears to be, none other than Luigi. Luigi does have 75 HP, but every time you defeat him, you're able to get 1 coin and 4 experience points, and that's about it, basically. So, now here's the catch. There are 2 different variations of these OGs. Specifically the red ones, as you can see on screen, that we utilize Luigi's Thunder hand power right at the red variation of these OG, and to put it simply though, is that it says critical. This means it's super effective. However though, if we go on to the other side, specifically the next temple that we're about to be trying to hit back in during at some point. But first things first though, let me go ahead and try to get ourselves the next Choco Bean. So, just in case we can able to try to keep on searching for those Choco Beans, just in case we can able to potentially try to increase our status at some point. Although, mind you though, I was expecting to able to try to go back into the actual, the coffee maker and stuff like that, but I'll tell you what though, once we're able to actually just to go into the forms of, more progression or something like that, then exponentially speaking though, we can able to actually start making some more different kinds of bean drinks in case if we're about to get something that's very rewarding in the process. So, but either way, so the reason why we somehow got the hand powers to begin with is mainly because, well, after all though, we've somehow now learned the fire hand power for Mario and thunder hand power for Luigi. That means we can now able to actually proceed into the underwater section, which I'll get into more details about that, because here's another OG right there, or OJ right there, only now for the fact that when it comes to utilizing the fire hand power, that's also critical, because if you somehow use the thunder by mistake, then obviously though it actually heals him. So that's one way to put it right there. So because of that though, nothing right to home about. And also we got ourselves another accessory right there, which I somehow realized. So that's nice and everything, but I wouldn't guarantee to able to try to equip it personally, because, you know, similar to the forms of how it does it for not only Super Mario RPG, but in addition to Paper Mario. Sometimes though, I would like to able to try to like equip something for my liking, but however though, I'm probably not going to show off any of those specific equipments in action, you see, because I'm more accustomed to like trying to increase my strength and defense for its high capacity, as well as the forms of HP and bros points as well, so that way we can able to actually don't have to worry about decreasing the status. So anyways, we come towards this particular bit right there, so in order to able to simply try to progress, well, we need to use the fire hand power right at this particular tiny hole right there as Mario, and then meanwhile for Luigi, you can able to use the thunder hand power right at the that orb, as I've shown you to earlier, and that way we can now proceed into the yellow pipe, which basically means we are now going to be going into the underwater bit of this particular location. So this means we are about to be constantly trying to go and swim a lot. So yeah, I guess that's all there is to it, basically. So, I do know for a fact that the actual location of this particular bit was actually going to be taking place on Wonder. That's what appears to be Oasis, or should I say, for the fact that we actually ended up in seabed. So, yeah, because chances are though is about the fact that, well, yeah, let's just go ahead and try to use the fire hand power right there to able to get rid of one of those corals and all that stuff. Ah, dang it, that was an unexpected ambush. But either way, these are the new enemies we can able to encounter with. Like, for instance, though, here we have Goom Divers. Goom Divers do have 30 HP, and every time you defeat them, you get about 25 experience points. And finally, most notably, though, you get about 8 coins if you manage to defeat them, that is. So yeah, they're kind of like regular Goombas, except they're on likely a scuba diver outfit. So I guess that makes it pretty obvious, considering for the fact that most enemies, well, one exception in particular, which we'll get into more details about that if we get on to the next area. So yeah, that was a definition of a close... Ah, dang it. I somehow timed it wrong, but oh well, no big deal. By the way, if you accidentally use your hand technique in battle, when the actual Goom Diver was actually swimming, you might get a chance to miss the attack. So yeah, you really can't guarantee to be able to hit airborne enemies like that, unless the only option for you, though, is, of course, jump or occasional bros attacks. So, yeah, that's one way to put it this way, so... But I digress. So, anywho, now, in terms of the advance of another one of those Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games, as I mentioned earlier, unexpectedly, we're about to be getting ourselves Dave, the Diver Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, unexpectedly, which I know for a fact that it does manage to bring up quite a number of things here and there. Like, for instance, though, as far as I can recall correctly, they did manage to be able to state about the fact that there's going to be high resolution and improved frame rates, so as a result, thankfully though, it's for completely free, for what I've noticed or something like that. I mean, I can't really judge about the advance of price tags when it comes to the advance of indie games, well, apart from Shantae games, of course, because, well, considering for the fact that the next Shantae game is going to be in development for, specifically for Nintendo Switch 2, as for this point in time, because after all, though, we've already just got one of the newest Shantae games, so, yeah, not too long ago, actually, so because of that, yeah, you can get the idea for this point, so... And also, as far as I'm aware, is that I believe this is going to be the second location we can able to actually come across into the rare enemy again, which you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's what appears to be Gold Beanie. So, but here's the catch though, is that if we do manage to come across into even more rooms at some point, in fact, let me just go ahead and choose. Oh, nice. We got ourselves about 5 bonus points if we manage to able to increase our bros points. So, how's that for that one? Oh, and by the way, if you dare touch these little spikes, then obviously though it just takes you back to the flat surface. So, just to make sure about the fact you don't get hurt or anything else like that. So, and here we have ourselves the familiar enemy, and that's what appears to be Blooper. Blooper in particular is that they do have, I would say 60 HP, and then every time you defeat them, you get about 35 experience points. And as for coins wise, you're able to get about, I would say, either 10 or 12. But like I said before, the actual results is not that very accurate to me though. Although don't worry though, if we get around on doing Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, the GameCube version to start off with, or anything else like that, but that's not going to be until specifically at some point in the near future, which, that reminds me though, is about the fact I just felt incredibly bad for, not only for Zelda, but in addition to Metroid as well, because we haven't gone around on doing one of those games in particular for both Zelda and Metroid for this year. Although my guess was is about the fact that since in 2025, we are still basically celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, which we already did done since around almost 2 months ago, which, gee, time flies, especially because it's even mad enough for the fact that it's been like 1 month ago since that not only Super Mario Galaxy, but also Super Mario Galaxy 2 on Nintendo Switch specifically did manage to recently came out since, you know, 1 month ago, which, yeah, it's pretty crazy to be able to actually kind of think about it, especially that, like I said before, I'm actually getting very close towards the end of our playthrough times for the sake of the forms of Super Mario Galaxy 2 before I move on to the next Nintendo Switch game I do need to complete, so... But that's not going to be until specifically though for the likes of it next year at some point, because obviously though, like I said, at the moment right now we are doing not only Mario Luigi Superstar Saga for its 3rd RPG Let's Play we're about to be doing, and on top of all that stuff though, that as far as you probably would expect, that Blaze is still working on Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Game Boy Advance as a remake. So, despite the fact that, like I said before, unfortunately though, that Blaze has no choice but to delay Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Game Boy Advance until next week, because, well, not only for the fact that she hasn't gone around on going back into it for quite some time, and on top of all that stuff though, she was also felt incredibly ill recently, so because of that, tell you what, when that time comes, or should I say, when we'll let Blaze the cat be able to try and rest for a while, and then when the time was right, then she should be able to actually go back on playing through Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Game Boy Advance in no time. And unfortunately though, I keep on getting myself ambushed by this very unexpected Goom Dive Burst, which, it's pretty unexpected because even then, because you might able to need to pay attention to the actual, the drop shadows at one point, but regardless of such though, I don't think it's possible we can able to actually explore around in every aspect in terms of the forms of seabed, because, well, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, like I said before, we are about to be constantly going to have to do a lot of swimming in some cases though. Also, I just realized something is about the fact that the bloopers in this particular location in this game, they are very aggressive in this, so, which that probably explains why, for the fact that sometimes the timing needs to be absolute perfection when it comes to likely trying to able to counterattack with the forms of some enemies and all that stuff, so... Anyway, so we somehow activate the thunder thing right there to able to continue our progress for the sake of time. But, yeah, I got nothing else to add about the forms of several other aspects. Although, there's actually another thing else I want to point out too. Since that we on, almost near to, mid-November, I guess it's only a matter of time for the fact that we might able to actually hear more about the forms of the Game Awards coming up, which not only for the fact that we just got about 1 month left until the actual Game Awards is going to be taking place. Usually, for the sake of time though, it's going to be taking place in the 11th of December, or should I say, the midnight portion of that date, because, well, since on the UK though, unfortunately though, for the fact that the actual time zone is going to be taking place in the forms of midnight, so no surprise there. But like I said before, but I might as well say this again, hopefully we might able to actually hear more about the forms of the Super Mario Galaxy movie teaser preview on the Game Awards 2025, just before 4 months before the actual film itself is releasing. So, yeah, not long now until the actual film is going to be releasing. Alongside with the films of Zootropolis 2, for sure. And straight to the point, though, is about the fact that we just got about, 3 weeks left now until, you know, Zootropolis 2 is releasing. So, and I get the feeling, actually, is about the fact that we just got about, I wouldn't classify for saying this, is about the fact that we just got about, 27 days to go until, you know, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond for both Switch 1 and Switch 2 is going to be releasing. Oh, and another thing too, it's been 1 year ago since Mario Luigi Brothership did somehow first came out on the Nintendo Switch since last year in 2024. And while looking back on it though, like I said before, I still haven't exactly completed the game yet, but that's mainly because the game itself is way long than I was expecting, but that's mainly because of, well, quite a number of things actually. Like for one thing, more animations plays out, and during the films have been cutscenes, and on top of that, battle transitions, and not only that though, there's actually a lot of side quests to do, which I'm still on the process of doing that. But, tell you what though, as soon as whenever I try to able to fully 100% everything in Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the Switch version specifically, I might able to actually get a chance of going back on playing through Mario Luigi Brothership on my spare own time, so just in case about the fact that since it's likely a cool coincidence about the fact that I'm still playing through Mario Luigi Superstar Saga for a while, when it comes to recording sections alike, so, but I digress. Although I was expecting to able to check on Shadow actually on his own house for the sake of the films of this coming weekend, but unfortunately though, for what I've realized is about the fact that, well, unfortunately though, his own house has got exploded by any other unexpected bomb appearances from an ambush from Bowser or Dr. Eggman for that matter, so he has no choice but to live with us for a very long time. So because of that though, because I was assuming for the fact that he's going to be on his own for quite some time, since 2020, since during the phones have been a lockdown, or anything else like that, or should I say, for the fact that since in 2023 that is, so, but anyway, so, I will still say though that those bloopers in particular are very dangerous, what I've noticed, especially despite the fact that we haven't got that much high defense for not only for Mario but as well as Luigi in general, although relatively speaking it's probably because of my timing issue when it comes to hammer swings and all that stuff. Oh wow, I still keep on getting myself some good luckiness with all that, you know, well-timed button presses and stuff like that, so that's always a nice little appreciation about that. Oh yeah, I should also mention this about the fact that when it comes to the 3DS remake of Superstar Saga, yes, it does have amiibo functionality, and all it does though, specifically in Superstar Saga to be more specifically, it just gives you some stamps, and that's about it, basically. So, nothing else, nothing more. But, apart from the fact that if you try to go into Bowser's Minions side story, basically, though, if you try to scan in, well, it's only for the fact that if you dare manage to scan in, not only a Goomba, but in addition to Koopa and Boo amiibos as well. Basically, though, you were able to guarantee to get all kinds of goodies, ranging from the golden variations of your captain, and on top of all that stuff though, just even more beans in general, which I'm probably not going to mention more about that until now, because even then, it is also worth knowing for too, is about the fact that in the 3DS remake, that particular remake, for those of you who lived in Japan, it was actually known as Mario Luigi RPG 1 DX, which it's very odd able to call it like RPG 1 DX, because that was considered as likely a first game but remade from the ground up for the 3DS. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, yeah, it's a little bit odd, which also say applies with the forms of Pikmin 1 plus 2 on the forms of Nintendo Switch, if you decided able to actually just to like consider this the fact that it's more likely like upscaled version of the forms that already existed Pikmin 1 and 2 on both GameCube and Wii, but usually got upscaled into full 1080p and stuff like that. Also with all that, you know, textures has been updated and stuff like that, so anyway, also, these guys right there that we're about to be face off against right about now, it looks familiar, doesn't it? Because remember from the likes of the forms of Chucklehood Woods, basically though, these guys are very familiar because if you keep on attacking that particular, well, should I say by the forms of that particular enemies that's covered in spikes and everything, but you know exactly what I'm on about, which is of course, you know, Pest Nut. So basically though, that if you do manage able to, well, keep on attacking the Pest Nut, then obviously though, the Beanie actually comes out. But since we're in underwater, we can't attack them. And this also includes, by the way, Gold Beanie. So because of that, I believe we just got about one chance left until we got those able to actually encounter or try to defeat the Gold Beanie for the sake of time. Although it really doesn't matter to me too much on a grand scheme of things, because at this point in time, that essentially speaking, we are still in the middle of this process when it comes to trying to keep on getting some more experience points and trying to level up at the same time. So just in case we can able to become a lot more powerful than I was expecting. So, but anyway, so yeah, apart from those side things though, that's as far as I can talk about in terms of the forms of today's discussion. Although, like I said before, it's about the fact that, yeah, it is rather unfortunate for the fact that Donkey Kong Country 3 Game Boy Advance version, more parts, it has been delayed. So, I suppose for the time being though, we are, you know, playing for some more Mario Luigi Superstar Saga for a little while, until we're able to actually let Blaze the Cat were able to get fully recovered from that, you know, the illness as far as is worth considering about. So, alright, so if I can recall correctly, I think we need to lit up the first one right there. And is it this one? Oh no, it says failure, so I have to restart that. So, I need to pay attention to this. 1, 4, 3, 5, 2. Okay, got it. So at least I know exactly what to do for this point, so anyway. Oh, dang it. I need to be dead on with that particular angle right there. Alright, there we go. And then we have 3. And then we also have 5. And lastly, 2. But yeah, when you get the hang of it though, it's not too bad. So, and that way we should now progress on to the next bit. So, I think everything else checks out there in terms of the forms of seabed as it stands. And also, much like the forms of how it does it on any other locations that we've already explored to earlier, once again we're able to actually access the map at one point. So just in case, you can able to definitely keep in track of where you are. So, anyway, the next thing I want to point out too is about the fact that since that, like I said before, we are actually almost getting close to the midway portion of November, it's only the matter of time about the fact that we can able to actually definitely hear about the forms of the nominations is about to be announced at some point, which I'm very curious enough though, so maybe there could be a possibility we might able to actually see not only Donkey Kong Bonanza will make its way onto the Game Awards for its nominations, and same applies with the forms of Sonic Racing Crossworlds as well, along with all the other games as well, which I could probably think about on top of my head, like for instance though, there's also Death Stranding 2 on the beach, and also among all others as well. So because of that, hopefully we'll discuss more about that and during at some point once the actual nominees has been announced for that particular topic for the Game Awards. So, but either way, so. And as far as the final subject I want to point out is that in terms of pre-ordering some more brand new games for the time, it's not going to be until specifically once the new year starts, specifically 2026. So for instance though, if I was going to try to pre-order, not the Animal Crossing New Horizons Nintendo Switch 2 edition, mind you, because of that particular backlash of the folks that playing classic games is locked up behind paid subscription when it comes to more accurately trying to go for playing for classic Nintendo games on Animal Crossing New Horizons. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a shame really, because unlike in the GameCube installment, basically though for the fact that the original Animal Crossing does allow you to able to actually unlock the ability to play NES games on Animal Crossing for the Nintendo GameCube, which is pretty awesome for I've realized, despite the fact that the pricing for the game these days is pretty disgustingly expensive, which I'm telling you right about now. So anyway, time to increase our power attack up, so only 2 plus, so, or plus 2 bonus, so it doesn't really matter to me on the grand scheme of things, so anywho though, so relatively speaking though, is that whenever I was trying to pre-order Mario Tennis Fever, that's going to be wait until specifically until the next 2 months. So until, you know, the new year is about to start, along with the forms of, well, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Nintendo Switch 2 edition, plus meet in the Bellabelle Park, or meet up in Bellabelle Park. So I know it has been quite a few months ago since we've last mentioned about that subject when it comes to Super Mario Bros. Wonder, because even then, aside from the fact that we haven't got anything else new coming up for that particular version of the game, because generally speaking, I get the feeling that much like the Evolves of how it does it for Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury back in 2021, obviously though we might not hear more about the Evolves of that particular Switch 2 edition for Super Mario Bros. Wonder until for a while, until we're able to actually hear more information about it, so along with the release date as well. I suppose maybe they're able to actually bring in a release date for that particular version of the game until on Happy Mario 10 Day for specifically in 2026, so, or to be more accurate though, taking place on the 10th of March, so, because you know, merged with March and 10 together makes it Mario, so I guess that makes a little bit more sense for that regard, so. And as far as the forms of Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is concerned, oh, and also with the forms of Splatoon Raiders, because we haven't heard anything from that particular spin-off game from Splatoon for quite some time, especially because they were originally trying to bring in the release date for that game, but chances are though, I get the feeling it's going to be on 2026 release date, so. But I just don't know when exactly though, but we shall wait and see what happens until maybe potentially the first Nintendo Direct will be up until specifically at the very beginning of 2026. And also for the fact that, well, hopefully by that time and during at some point in later on in this month, obviously though we might able to actually get ourselves the, well, the Nintendo Direct focuses on the forms of the Super Mario Galaxy movie at some point, which I'm really hoping that'll be the case, so yeah, one of those beanies is about to swim up, so this means we can't get a chance to able to try to deal with them at this point, so yeah, as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that, like I said before, there's nothing else we can able to try to do the majority of it for the sake of the forms of Seabed, But until later on, though, we can able to actually try to swim around in any other sections for that matter. So, well, there goes the gold beanie, and oh, we got ourselves the spike badge. I believe if you do manage to equip that, basically though, if it does manage to allow you to able to attack spike enemies, so that's nice and everything. So as a result though, it's very similar to the forms of how it does it for Spike Shield badge in Paper Mario, so at the very least that's that. But here's the only drawback with this though, and that's what it appears to be for the fact that we got that badge way later compared to the forms of how it does it back in the forms of in Chunkerhood Woods. So as a result though, that I wasn't able to actually try to think about it, but either way. Also, if you're about to be planning to leave this particular seabed, you do need to able to hold down A and B together, while at the same time though, pressing the control pad up, so that way you can able to actually climb all the way up on that specific pipe. So, in fact, that particular section, as we saw earlier, it reminds me of so much of one of those mini games in Mario Party DS that's kind of like that, except you do have more buttons to work with. Like, pressing the X button will allow you to go up, and then I believe the Y button, if you're trying to press the Y button at the same time, you're able to actually turn one of those little things around, and same applies with the A button too, so... Oh, gee. Looks like Farvel's up to something. And generally speaking, though, Bowser's got possessed by, well, the Chocolata. So, yeah, I guess that almost becomes like a creepy poster or something like that. So, I suppose we have no choice to be able to try to figure out this mystery. So, although usually despite the fact that Bowser, or Roki in particular, or should I call it Bowser from now on, because it's just literally Bowser, but disguised as the actual likely a thief looking. So, anyway, now, I can definitely tell for one thing is about the fact it does manage to take place in Stardust Fields again, but only now for the fact that Farvel's now going to be using Kakalata to potentially try to possess Bowser for its obscure transformation, from what I've noticed, so... But either way, so we somehow meet again with the forms of Prince Pearsley right there, to potentially speaking of, is that for what I can gather, Princess Peach might be arriving at Bean Bean Airport, so... Yeah, I guess that's going to be our next destination as far as I'm concerned. So because of that, yeah, very intriguing to know about the fact that Princess Peach is definitely going to be coming into Bean Bean Kingdom. So, yeah, that's actually pretty swell. But I'm really hoping about the fact that her voice does not get messed up or anything else like that. So, but we shall wait and see. So either way though, although I was expecting to try to able to pop over to the actual, the cafe spot in, Castletown for the last few portions of this, but I might have to wait on that until specifically later on, that is, so, or specifically tomorrow in some cases, so because of that, yeah, I just got nothing else to say. So with that being said, folks, is that we should probably end things up this point right here once we make our way back to the Castletown. So yeah, join me next time for some more of Let's Play of Mario Luigi Superstar Saga for the Game Boy Advance version specifically, despite I got ambushed, but that's besides the point. So, either way, we should able to actually make our way to the Bean Bean Airport to able to wait for Princess Peach's arrival. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow.